Hi guys, hi moon babies, hi sheepy fans. My name is Curly and I'm gonna be here with you for the next hour discussing mental health. First of all, I'd like to do a shout out for Sheepy and the whole Seeking Blue family. You guys are absolutely incredible for doing this for your audience. It's so necessary these days and I'm super glad to be a part of it. Thank you. So you guys, what we're gonna do today is, first of all, I'm gonna share my own mental health journey. And then I'm going to answer the questions that some moon children have already sent in. A little disclaimer, this podcast, this video is not live. I have pre-recorded it. I've asked for people to send in questions. I'm actually currently, as we speak, in Vipassana. And what Vipassana is, you can just Google it, but it's basically a 10-day meditation, silence, art of life camp. It has its roots in Buddhism, and so I'm currently don't have my phone really, and I'm sure I'm experiencing some crazy breakthroughs. And what I want to start with is this really beautiful thought that I came across on YouTube a few days ago, and I thought it just resonated so well for right now. It's by this Kundalini yoga coach, Amy Ray from UK. And she has a channel called Transformational Teaching. You see, I made some notes. Transformational Teaching, yes. She's quite incredible. And she was talking about pain and how pain is kind of like looked down upon in this society that is like constantly seeking pleasure. And even if we choose to honor our pain, it's still often so that you would get to like move through it quicker and move to the good part. But she painted this really beautiful picture of a tree growing, and as the tree grows, it goes through, spring and summer and fall and winter, and sometimes the leaves come off and sometimes the branches break off, and sometimes it's difficult and sometimes it thinks it won't survive, and then there's the sunny day. And us as society, we're so geared towards the sunny day that we kind of disregard the pain and difficult times as an important part of the story, equally as important. I really love what she said when she said, it's all equally sacred. It all needs to be equally honored, And as I've been kind of like working through my own pain and trying to stay present with it, I've also fallen into this trap where I sit with my pain so that it would dissolve. And she kind of gave this really beautiful new perspective of like, but it's okay. It's all okay. It's all a part of the journey. It's all sacred. It's all holy. It's all okay. And that leads me to a thought that I would really love for you guys to take away from this. And that thought is, remove the panic. There's no need to panic about your mental health. There's no need to panic if there's something in your life that you don't like, And it's been kind of like a new thing for me that I've been trying to practice. And in the beginning of the summer, I was studying this really beautiful teacher, TWLOHA. She's dead now. But she said that when your drawers are messy, you just fix the drawers. Like, you don't need to drive yourself crazy over it. And I know that at first, when you're like really starting to look at yourself and doing the shadow work, for me at least, there was so much panic involved. There was so much shame involved. There was so much guilt involved. But all of that is completely unnecessary. There's neuroplasticity. You can just fix your brain. You can change. It's totally doable. It's all okay. So let's take this conversation from like a really peaceful, calm place. And before I answer you guys' questions, I would like to tell you a little bit about my own mental health journey, which has been quite rocky, quite a ride. I'll start from the beginning. I experienced severe childhood trauma. And I'm 32 years old now, and this is something that has been haunting me my whole life. It's caused a lot of wounds, a lot of scars, a lot of patterns, that I at this day don't want to repeat anymore. But the growth has been pretty intense. And as a teenager, I was doing it all. I mean, you name it, I was doing it all. Writing the sad poetry, thinking the big thoughts, always had really big questions that nobody had answers to. As a teenager, I was cutting myself. I was hating the world. I felt like an alien. I never fit in. I felt severe depression. And that kind of continued to my 20s, but in a different kind of way. When I was 20 years old, I moved to Los Angeles. And I say that my 20s were the kind of crazy, wild ride decade where on the surface I was kind of living my dream. And I was living my dream. That was my dream, But my dream was also like an interesting survival mechanism for me, where it really gave me hope to keep on living, and making that art was kind of like a way of escaping. And so my whole 20s, I was kind of like still living in that bubble and doing my thing and not really very deeply looking at myself. I had developed a protection mechanism that made me very selfish because I never had anything to fall back on. So I was kind of just doing me and kind of isolated mentally from humanity and kind of lost. And when I was about 27 years old, they talk about the Saturn return and all of these things, but I had a complete fucking life crash. And I was living in my beautiful house in Hollywood Hills, and on the surface it's like I had everything, I could look at the Hollywood sign from my balcony and just the beautiful nature and, enough finance to do whatever I wanted. And deep down inside, I was just so broken and so unsatisfied with the life I was living and the connections I was having. And I had never seriously, deeply looked at myself. I was always numbing out, always escaping, always overworking, not sleeping enough, not really doing any self-care, smoking a lot of cigarettes and other things. And I just got to a point where I completely ran against the wall, and I was like, this life that I'm living has been my dream life for as long as I remember myself. And I was just having a complete identity breakdown where I was like, but this curly character is not really who I am anymore. And this life actually, I'm not satisfied with this life. And there was like a short period of time where literally I quit my life. I quit my dream. I was tired of it. I was like, this is not me anymore. Okay, I don't know what's gonna happen, but this is not me anymore. And it was scary as fuck. All the connections in my life, like connections that I considered important, people that I considered to be like my soulmates and my tribe, everything kind of started falling away, and I was left with nothing. And I just knew that I couldn't go on like this anymore. There was something wrong. And I took a huge leap of faith. I literally packed up my things and came to Estonia. And since I had nowhere else to go, I just came to the woods. And I was just writing music for the first time, from just like, I'm just writing this because I want to write some music right now. And kind of just started making the kind of art that I always wanted to make without like any input, without anybody telling me what I should be doing. And as I've said before on Instagram and whatnot, when I've been sharing my life, you guys, out of that terrible situation came a beautiful new life that I would have never even imagined. And I now spend most of my time in the forest, in the nature, just doing my art and just doing self-care. And I have never in my life done self-care like this. And if you are asking, what are my mental health secrets, then my mental health secrets are actually pretty simple. The first one for me is nature. I always knew this about myself, but until I actually came and spent decent time in the nature, in the quiet, in the solitude, I never knew what a vital part of my well being that actually was. The layers deep that I've been able to go just by not having any distractions and having this just pure vibration around me is crazy. I never would have thought that this kind of like creativity and actual, I don't want to say abundance, because abundance isn't really like enough of a word. I'd have to say bountifulness. You know, I never knew that life could be like that. And now that I have this experience, I can tell that for me, it's absolutely crucial. I'm so sensitive. I cannot live in a place where there's noise, like in my home, either there's no TVs, there's no things like that, because I don't need that noise. And it really helps with my mental health to like kind of cut away the noise. If you can't go to the nature or spend extended amounts of time like this in the nature, just go for a walk. Just go for a walk as much as possible. Another thing that I find really, really important for mental health is the support of your family or close circle of friends. And that was again one of these things that I really had no idea about until I came here back to Estonia and experienced the support of my absolutely incredible family, and this deep cosmic loneliness that I kind of had inside me my whole life like suddenly wasn't there anymore. And I really, as I spent more time here and being in nature, being with the people that love me unconditionally, I started feeling a deep sense of healing and kind of joy. And I realize now that when I think back at my whole 20s and I kind of judge my little, segments of life by the places I've lived, because I've lived in like 11 places or something, like a crazy nomad. And I think back at that apartment, I'm like, oh, I was so unhappy. And I think back at that place and I'm like, oh, I was so unhappy. And I go through all of them and I'm like, oh, wow, I was so unhappy. And when I think of this forest experience, all I can basically think back of are the good times. Yeah, there are bumps on the road. Yes, I'm doing the shadow work. Yes, I'm facing some deep, deep things. But mostly I'm happy. So, nature and support system. Also, what helps me, I feel like, stay sane is schedule. I said that word. 5 years ago, I would never even have said that word, schedule, or like routine. That would just sound like hell for me. But now I actually like to kind of like print out of my calendar like a few months in advance, and I have it up there and I can just schedule things in. Okay, here's the day. This day I'm gonna like do this video. This day I'm gonna, just spend on my house. This day I'm gonna write a song, And I really, really like kind of like knowing what I'm doing, and also like being in a good groove with my work hours, with my working out, with my relax hours. I think relaxing is highly, highly important, as important as working. And in this society where we're just constantly basically driven on the achievement and outside approval, relaxation and mindfulness and quiet, it's absolutely crucial. I'm also like a big foodie and superfood junkie, and I love taking care of my nutrition. I meal prep. I try to eat as many greens and veggies and fruit as possible, always trying out new recipes. And also while I'm doing that, let's say I'm really going to take half a day to cook or like to try out something new. Just really training myself to be present and enjoy the moment and enjoy my life. And I guess that's mindfulness, right? It's not just like going through the motions of your life, but really putting in the soul, into every moment that you get to take a breath. I also find that, exercise, obviously, yoga, meditation is so important to me. I had the most incredible time this June where first thing in the morning, I would not pick up my phone, but I would do yoga, I would meditate, and then I would do affirmations. And affirmations that were incredibly healing for me, for example, were, I'm more than enough. I'm more than enough, you know? Because I feel like this is something that a lot of people constantly feel like they're not enough. I don't know where it like comes from, but I started putting it into my affirmations. I'm more than enough. I'm more than enough. And that at first brought up like a lot of, it swelled up a lot of emotion, and then I cleared it. And then I was like, oh yeah, yeah, absolutely. I absolutely am. It like becomes a part of you after a while if you like watch your thoughts and really choose your thoughts carefully and focus on those empowering thoughts. Also, another one that really resonated with me, that brought up an interesting blockage was, my life is playful and full of joy. And I've always considered myself like a really melancholy kid. But I realize now that that was just because of my childhood experience. By the way, if you had an abusive childhood, I want you to know there's this theory out there that's a really nice theory. It's by Michael Newton. He has written those amazing books, Soul's Journey, and I don't exactly remember, but they're really great. And he says that if your soul does pick your own life, picking an abusive or difficult childhood equals 7 lifetimes of lessons. So if you picked difficult stuff in this life, then basically you're an ambitious soul. And I also want to say that I know that a lot of you must know that you guys are light workers. And that's why you're also interested in doing the work on yourself, right? Because you're like, like this heaviness, this turbulence, this, I can't carry it. Because your soul is crying out for so much more, so much richer of an experience. There is this archetype of a wounded healer in many traditions. And what it is saying basically is that you cannot become a healer if you haven't had your wounding. And every experience, especially the ones that completely bring you to your knees, are initiations for that next. And how could you create a powerful change in the world if you didn't know compassion? How could you help other people heal their pain if you didn't know pain? So I know it kind of goes back to that whole appreciate it all, be present with it all talk. But I guess that's something that I could end the story about my own mental health with. So I'm reading you guys' questions and picked out the ones that had gotten the most likes, and that sounded also interesting to me. Curly Update on Instagram asks, what about boundaries? Some time ago you mentioned it on Instagram stories, but I think you should go deeper into the topic. By the way, on my IGTV, there's also a little blip about boundaries, but I'll talk about them again then. The most likely cause of your poor boundaries, if you have poor boundaries, if you're a people pleaser, is childhood abuse. Because when you're a child and your parent doesn't respect your boundaries, then you never quite correctly develop them, right? If you have some screaming alcoholic dad who doesn't care that you don't want to be up listening to that until 7 a.m., they don't care. They're not holding space for you. They're not helping you process your emotions as parents should. So you kind of develop these poor boundaries, and you're probably also acting out patterns of the people that raised you. And if you don't really look at it, then you kind of just go through your whole life just acting out the same things. I am a huge believer in therapy, and I had an incredible therapy experiences in Canada where I was working with this just very down-to-earth, serious, older male therapist. And he quickly detected that I had poor boundaries, and I had never thought that about myself because I'm pretty outspoken and I thought I was bold. But turns out that I had extremely poor boundaries. So what he made me do is he made me write down in the form of you must not, the things that I'm not allowing in my life anymore from other people. You must not yell at me, you must not lie to me, you must not diminish me. whatever it is that it is for you. And I highly suggest you do this work because it's really powerful. And he then made me like speak it out and imagine like in a cloud up above my head, and then make it drop into my body as I was speaking it, so that I would feel what I would really, so that I would feel what I'm trying to facilitate. You must not yell at me. And it was very interesting how much resistance I had to making these boundaries a part of me, where I was like, well, but you give chances. And he said, don't give chances. Like, communicate your boundaries, and then when people violate your boundaries, you maybe do like one warning, but then you just like, listen, like, this isn't working for me. And yeah, it was strange how difficult those boundaries were to like get into my body. And I've been integrating them since then, and it's been like a year or more. And I actually just recently started feeling that I had strong boundaries. And what that made me feel like, those beliefs had now incorporated enough where there was no anger about it anymore. There was no reaction about it. Like, I don't mind if somebody crosses the boundary because I know where the boundary is. So it doesn't cause this like lengthy reaction in me anymore. It's softened a lot. So I think once you get very clear about what's unacceptable to you, and you spend enough time with those thoughts, then they will eventually become a part of you. And then you can soften, and then you can let people in, and then you can trust. And it's not about trusting in other people, it's about trusting in yourself, to be able to take care of yourself, to be able to hold your own space, to be able to just love yourself enough where there's just certain things that you won't allow anymore. Inder C asks, how do you seek out mental health practices like nature therapy or shadow work that work for you? What role does nutrition play for mental health in your opinion? I've been spending a little time with your questions, you guys, so I've written down some things here. I don't know how the information finds you. They say when the student is ready, the teacher will appear. So basically all my findings, I've just been like led by intuition. I'll be watching something on YouTube, it will suggest me something else, a friend will suggest me something. And I think it's important to be curious. Or, not important, if that's not important to you. But for me, somebody who just wants to like go, grow. Curiosity, I think, is what propels me forward at this point, at least, because it's not fear that pushes me forward anymore. I'm good. I feel good. I just want to know more. Like, what else is there? And you're talking about nutrition here, and we talk about nutrition a lot. And yes, absolutely, it's one of the most important things. But think of also on all the things that you put in your mind, that you put in your body, as far as like emotions go, as far as who you're spending your time with, like, what do your eyes see? What do your ears hear? Like, are these the things that you want to be a part of you? Because when they're hearing, it will become a part of you. When they're seeing something, it will become a part of you, And these days when media and everything is basically just built on triggering people, just getting reaction, just playing on that very basic animal self, that wants to like hate and fuck and eat and whatnot. That's not a recipe for great mental health, allowing all that information in. I also feel extremely strongly about that. So I've written here, feed your brain good stuff. Feed your brain good stuff. Feed your ears smart people. Watch the TED Talks. Listen to the big thinkers, Don't read hate. Don't consume hate, pain, fear. Don't consume that shit, Find the beneficial information. And also what I think is important is to just try stuff, Even when you're just starting with therapy, it might not be the first therapist that you go to that you really click with. I worked with a lot of therapists. I worked probably with like 5 therapists minimum on all different continents. Some of them I really vibed with, some of them I didn't like at all. Is that going to turn me off like therapy and getting to know myself? No. So just try and see like what comes for you and say yes to experiences. I just recently went to a tantric course with my friend whose like boyfriend couldn't go. So she's like, just come with me. I was like, yeah, I want to know. I want to know what's up. And it was so freeing. It was a really, really great experience. So just try stuff and see what works for you. Find your own information. Nate Higgins asks, talk about overcoming narcissistic mental abuse, please. There's really a lot to talk about when it comes to this personality disorder, but I guess what you could say is a narcissist is a very sad, broken child, hiding in a fantastic facade for everybody else to see. They are not in touch with their true nature or who they really are. They are just carefully building the facade. And it's a very, very sad life. You guys, I could talk about this topic for hours. I have like a PhD in narcissism, I swear to God. And I really recommend that you go and read up on what this personality disorder means to see if you are surrounded by somebody who's a narcissist, so that you would know how to be cautious with people like that. And also so that you could see if you yourself carry any narcissistic traits so you can fix yourself right now. But one thing I can tell you is, if you're reading all that stuff and you're wondering, am I a narcissist? And you're like asking somebody else, you're like, oh my God, am I a narcissist? Then you're not a narcissist, because a true narcissist would never admit to having anything wrong with them. And if you are somebody who has suffered narcissistic abuse, I am so sorry to hear about it, because it is absolutely one of the most painful, diminishing, I don't even know what word to use here exactly, but I know what you're going through, and it's difficult because a narcissist eventually doesn't mean well for you, you know? And if you've been in a relationship with one, or if your parent is one or whatnot, they don't want you happy, you know? Let's say there's a breakup with a narcissist. It's not like a normal breakup where somebody would be like, oh, you know what, I'm not feeling this, you know, or like I still wish you well. They don't wish you well. They are absolutely going to destroy you before they discard you. And there are all these terms, and they're going to hoover you. It's a whole thing. But if it is so that we're just here in these embodiments to grow, and that everybody that comes to our life, you know, we have some kind of a soul contract with, then having a relationship like this, having a life altering experience like this, something that completely pushes you to your knees, something that completely fucking breaks you open and shows you that you have no control. You have no control in any of this. It's a huge gift and a huge blessing and a beautiful thing. And I know this is really difficult to hear if you're like in the thick of it. I know, trust me. But I promise you that if you do the work, if you use other people wounding you as just signposts of where your wounds already are, if you just have these angels really just ripping off the band-aids and saying, look at this shit, heal it finally, heal it thoroughly, you know, heal it completely. These people that hurt us the most are really our most powerful teachers. All the pain is just an opportunity for you to see where you need to do healing. So how you heal from narcissistic abuse is that you turn the attention inward. And it is true that you should probably at some point stop reading all these things, stop studying all these things, stop perpetuating this pain, and turn inward and start doing the healing. I would say that, of course, all of those self-love and everything, I've been just practicing radical self-love for years and done a lot of healing. There's one really powerful tool that I found, and that is a course developed by Melanie Tonia Evans. It's called NARP, Break Free of Narcissistic Abuse with Quantum Healing Tools and something. And it's a bit of an expensive course. It's a few $100s, but oh my God, is it worth it? And what she does there, basically, it has nothing to do with other people. It has nothing to do with other people. It's nothing to do with what someone else does. I've really gotten to a place where I'm like, I don't really care what someone else does. And I love myself so much that I don't want to be mad about what someone else does. I don't want these feelings inside me. So, what Melanie's course is teaching you to do is to take all the attention, turn it inwards, turn it inside, and start releasing traumas from your body. Because you are really only attracting life experiences that are a vibrational match to you. So you are attracting from a wound place a lot. And until you have unhealed things inside, you're going to attract not very pretty things, not very joyous experiences. But it's not because these other people are bad. It's just, this is where you are not healed. And a lot of the emotion just gets stuck in body, and it's just like this dense, and I mean, I didn't know what to think of it when I started taking the course. I felt guided to, and I followed it. And so far I've done 10 sessions of basically this like trauma release from the body. It's kind of like hypnosis / meditation. And it's just, my God, the things that I've found in my body, the things that that have opened up for me, the information. I stopped eating meat. And I really, really think it's because of this course. I just released a lot of density in my body, and interesting things came out too, like extraterrestrials and like strange things, even small things, the fact that my parents weren't like verbal with praise, like little things like that, little traumas, big traumas, of course, too. But how to heal from narcissistic abuse is to start loving yourself, to self-partner, to do the proper healing, to be a fucking trooper, to face your own shit, to go through the dark shit, and just be bold, and really use this as an opportunity to start truly loving yourself. Coconut Adventure asks, how do you keep your relationship going when depression is taking over you? If you need time and space to heal on your own but don't want your significant other to feel unloved and not needed, how do you find the balance? How do you learn to love yourself while keeping on loving someone else? So the first thing I've written here is therapy and structures. I think it's really important to get a therapist, if at all possible, so that you have something in place where you know that you can go and unload and discuss your heavy shit, and all your really good relationships aren't burdened with the heavy shit, or so at least that they're not the only place where you go unload your heavy things. Because sometimes, we spend the good time with the people we don't know, and then we go back to the people we love the most, and we just only have bad news. On the other hand, I've written here to be cautious of the savior and victim dynamic, because both of those are really, really low frequency. Victim being like the lowest frequency that you can be. Victim consciousness is a huge enemy that we have. So, it's of course okay for people to go through life crisis. And I've also written here, relationships, we have them. And we are flawed in thinking that we have relationships to be happy. No, you don't have relationships to be happy. You should already be happy. You have relationships to grow together. And if you're with someone that can't really go through that ditch with you, then they're probably not really a good long-term partner. And the same goes for you. If you can't really stand up for the two sometimes, or however many people is there in your relationship, all kinds of forms these days, modern world. If you can't really go through the tough shit, then you don't really have shit. So yeah, just help yourself. If your partner's going through something, help them. Sometimes people that are depressed, they can't do these practical things. I remember a time in my life where I couldn't even find a therapist because I was so exhausted of the battle with my mental health. And I didn't really have that time anybody in my life that would help me. And that was a very, very lonely feeling. And also, yeah, be careful of those savior-victim dynamics. Some people only know one way to get energy from other people, and that's just being the victim of life. And it's a really terrible way. It's actually a way to, it's an energy vampirism. And if it like goes on for longer, like long, and it's actually like a way of life where you can see that this person doesn't want to change, they're not doing anything to help themselves, then I suggest that you free yourself from a connection like that. Because if you're spending a lot of time with somebody who is a victim, like a perpetual victim of life, that's just that just kills your vibe. This painted soul on Instagram asks, talk about authenticity and how staying authentic is beneficial to our overall well-being. I always admired the fact that you came to Estonia to ground yourself and heal. It seemed like such a brave, authentic thing to do. Coming back to the earth, going within to heal yourself and fill your own cup. And now you share the overflow with us, and it's so inspiring. Thank you. I'd love to hear your thoughts on authenticity, self-love, and healing from the inside out. You know what? I have to say thank you so much for recognizing that, and for recognizing that in my journey. It was a huge leap of faith. And I think kind of quitting my life at some point and like allowing a version of me to just die completely, and doing the shadow work and whatnot, I think is the biggest act of authenticity and self-love that I've ever committed. So I really appreciate that you recognize that. And my thoughts on authenticity, self-love from inside out. The only way to be happy is to love yourself. The only way to be happy is to fulfill your own cup. And I really deeply feel that there's really nothing outside of you. It's all happening inside. And you get what you are and you see what you are. So if you don't like what you see, then you need to change what you are. And I really love this. There's this one pyramid. I don't remember what kind of a pyramid it is, but on top of that, on top of the human, there's all these traits like logical human, great thing, logical human, but a creative human is a more higher frequency than a logical human. Everybody can think logically. Creativity, that's like godlike traits already. That's tapping into your higher self. And on top of that pyramid is a self-approved human. And I'm not sure that I'm saying the words exactly right, but the moment you stop seeking validation from outside of yourself, I think is when you like really crack the code and life hack fucking big time. Because that's when the fun begins. And it can be very scary to look at something and say, no, actually, you know what? Fuck all of you. This world that you built, I don't really want to be part of that. Bye. It's very, very scary. And to even like to become an artist or to do something creative and like to share your soul and to say, yeah, I see you got like some really nice, roads paved over there, but you know what? I'm just over here with my machete and I'm gonna like chop myself through this wilderness and I don't know what's gonna happen and it's completely uncertain. And on my way, everybody's gonna tell me that I suck, and I am gonna suck for a long time, and I'm willing to suck. That's like anarchy in its best form. That's self-love. Agnes.rc asks, do you have any tips on how to quickly detect that our behavior is being self-sabotaging? What do you do to prevent self-sabotage? Great question. And if anybody figures out deeper thoughts about self-sabotage and just overall too, I'm also going to put this video up on my channel after we've broadcasted here. And leave comments on what you think of these things. I have been a huge self-sabotager my whole life. And from the information that I've gathered, self-sabotage comes from a deep inner belief that you are not enough, that you are not good enough to receive this greatness. So you start fucking it up for yourself. And I can't even tell you how much stuff I fucked up for myself. I really messed up some really great opportunities and great relationships because I was just didn't know better back then. So here again, I'd like to come back to that thought that I mentioned in the beginning of the chat. Remove panic. You know what? Growing. Doing the best. And also a really comforting thought that I got one of my friends, beautiful friends over here in Estonia. She said, it's so easy to live when you just accept that everyone is always doing their best. That's their best. And that was your best at that time when you were doing that unconscious stuff, you know? Didn't know better back then. TFL David asks, please talk about staying motivated during mental health battles. It is really difficult to stay motivated when you're battling mental health issues. But from my own experience, what really helps me is just having a routine, you know? Definitely when I was doing like the deep shadow work and really deep healing, it really requires a lot of energy. So sometimes you don't have that motivation in the external world, and that's fine too, you know, because if you're not healing yourself and if you're not coming fully to yourself, then all of this external stuff is useless anyway, and you're not going to go that far. So I see what's really helped me is just having the routine, you know, having a good schedule for myself, making sure that I get good sleep, very simple things, very gentle things, making sure that I get good rest, making sure that I eat good food, and even just a daily meditation or like a daily yoga session, I swear to God, can make such a huge difference. Or like a walk to the nature, as I was saying in the beginning of the video. Brink Knows Better is asking, any good techniques to stop a downward spiral when you start to catch yourself? Distraction techniques or calming techniques? Lately, I can catch myself entering a state of sadness, panic, or self-loathing, but I struggle with finding ways to get back on track in those moments. Yes, very, very good question. There's this really amazing doctor, Joe Dispenza, who has basically developed this theory, or, you know, is very successfully proving it as well, that sometimes you can literally be addicted to pain. Basically what happens is your mind starts racing, and that creates chemicals in your body, and your body gets addicted to those chemicals because it kind of starts feeling comfortable after a while if you've been telling yourself the same story many times enough. And when you kind of start watching your thoughts, let's say meditating. Meditation, by the way, is the most powerful tool that you can have for controlling your mind, to be able to switch your thoughts, to be able to be like, this thought, no thanks, I'm not going to get on this train. This isn't, no. That thought, yes, I'm going to replace it, you know, to be in control of your mind, to be in control of your emotions. And I think all of these techniques, like meditation, are so easy to practice and so necessary. I couldn't imagine if I wasn't meditating. And I don't know how I was able to function in life without meditating. So it's just that changing those neural pathways. When that stuff comes on, that makes you, you know, and sometimes we like the pain too. It's, you know, it's comfortable sometimes. When that thought comes, you're just like, nope, different thought. And you start doing that enough time, you break that connection, you break that habit of going there, then you're free of it. And Dr. Joe Dispenza also says that by the time you're 35 years old, your neural pathways are pretty like hardwired. So it gets harder and harder to change who you are. So if you guys are watching and you're still young, please do the work. Please, you know, put in the effort to really become the best version of yourself, because the faster, the less time you've, you know, spent with like unhealthy patterns, unhealthy mental patterns, the easier it is for you to change them and to live a fulfilling life. But I do think that besides the mental aspect, you know, meditation, all those things that you can do for your mind, I was talking about the Melanie Tonia Evans course before, I've really found it powerful to start also working within your body, and not so intellectual, but more just face all of your feelings and to fully feel them, and to not feel them so that you could feel the next good thing, but to really feel them. And it's interesting how different teachers kind of like approach it differently, where I see male teachers saying, just be present with the feeling. And the female teachers saying, just nurture the feeling, give it love, witness it, you know? It's just interesting how different people, you know, give different advice. But I think it all pretty much comes down to the fact that you need to be present with everything that you're feeling, and then it can dissolve. And then again, remove the panic. Remove the panic. It's a process. I remember when I was like deep in my shadow work and I was consulting with my teacher. I have a spiritual teacher here in Estonia, and I started seeing things like crazy monsters, ugly things. And I went to her and I was so ashamed. I was so embarrassed of these things that I was finding within myself. And she calmed me down so beautifully. She just said, "Oh, that was a place inside you that just wasn't loved enough." And that was so healing. To know that these big, ugly things, that these monsters, these things we want to change, they're not really our enemies. They're just some they're just some, place that needs love. Florence X asks, as someone who has struggled with anxiety and depression since childhood, I've always been drawn to create things to express myself. Then when I try, I get blocked and the cycle starts again. Do you have any tips for overcoming this? Yeah, I've written down for myself discipline. Just discipline yourself. And some people tend to think that discipline is like the enemy of creativity. No, discipline fuels creativity. If you give yourself like several hours every day where you're just saying, listen, I'm just going to sit here and I'm just going to put in the time. Really looking back, it took me like 10 years or more. To be honest, it took me like 15 years to become an artist where now I can like sit down and make something that actually sounds good. Or, create something visual that I'm actually like, this is on point. Like I was always like looking at the things I was making and I'm like, it's not quite there, And now it's like I'm looking at my Savage's music video and I'm listening to my album and I'm like, I like it. I'm proud of this work. And I'm excited to get better. I think a lot of the times when we like start doing something, we get discouraged. But it's not that some people are just so much better at something than others, If you have a fair amount of talent, then it just really comes down to how much work you're willing to put in, how much you're going to be able to self-discipline yourself, how much you're going to be able to sit through the discomfort of not being good at something yet, So I've written here, takes 10 years to not suck. So relax yourself and just start the work today so that you can look back in 5 years and be like, fuck, I've gotten good. The Cosplay Pixie says, hi Curly, do you find that dressing up helps to people to deal with their anxiety and depression? I have recently felt like I'm able to conquer my feelings with my cosplay and dressing up, and it makes me feel empowered. Do you feel the same? As I feel much more confident in myself that way. Yes, I can totally 100% relate, I think even the little things, sometimes when you're just like down, you force yourself to get out from the bed. You're like, okay, put on something great. Don't put on something random. Put on something great. Put on the makeup. And you're standing there in front of the mirror and you're like, okay, I fucks with that. And also dressing up and creativity is like a form of play. So who doesn't love to play? Of course it's going to make you feel good. So absolutely. And I learned this really cool technique from Amber Khan, actually, before she like mad blew up on YouTube. I had this really beautiful oracle reading from her. And she said, I have this idea of myself, how I'm gonna dress up. I'm in this like white bodysuit, my hair is like that. Start imagining those things, even if you're not like actively creating it. Imagine how you would be like, if you were your best self, and then relish in those emotions. That's also conscious manifesting, right? So confidence is also always a really good thing to manifest, and feeling good about yourself. S_inage. Sorry if I'm pronouncing your name totally wrong. How do you deal with depression and anxiety in the winter? I'm from Texas and I just moved to Alaska. It's hard for me to not get depressed when it's cold, dark, and rainy the whole time. Oh my God, I can relate to this so much. You have no idea. So currently in Estonia, here in the forest, living in the woods, and especially in the woods, like it gets dark in a different way than it does in the city. So Today I noticed that 5 p.m. it was already dark. And last winter I was trying to spend here in Estonia, and honestly it got to the point where it got dark at like 3 p.m. And I realized that I cannot spend my winters in a climate like that. Even the nature goes like on, saving mode, or what's the survival mode, all the juices, all the blossoms, everything goes back to the roots. Like nothing is expressed, nothing is blossoming, nothing is dancing, nothing is celebrating. And yes, that is a natural cycle of life. I met this really incredible old shaman man, and he says how he lives in a climate like that is he's basically awake the whole summer. Same right here in Estonia too. It's a polar day, it almost never gets dark, and that he basically just sleeps the whole winter. So I think that kind of life kind of does require a more in tune living with the nature cycles. But I also noticed myself, I'm so highly sensitive that for me, the darkness, I just can't do it. Like no matter what I do for my mental health, I don't have the energy really to, mm, I don't even know what the word is, celebrate. I just don't have the energy in the dark. So the best balance that I found for myself, I think I'm still trying out, I'm still wiggling my life into place. I'm still on the journey of figuring out what's the best way for me to live. I think I want to spend my summers in Estonia and spend the winters somewhere warm. And I know that sometimes that's not possible. And you know what? I don't even know what to tell you. I think last winter I started trying out this one thing where I would, from 12 to 2, I would go and take a walk outside. And that did help a little bit. And I think taking D vitamin, all of these things. But other moon children and other viewers, share your thoughts about that. It would be really interesting to know. I would also really like to know. And another question before I finish here that I wanted to answer to was about taking meds, because you guys are right. A lot of people were asking that. There's a lot of stigma out there about medication. And I think back in the day when I really didn't know about medication, or didn't know of any cases of people who really, really needed medication, I also kind of like looked down on it. But I've completely changed my mind about medication. There are people around me that would not be able to function unless they were on proper medication. And sometimes it is just a chemical thing, Sometimes it's hereditary, where if there's like depression, addiction, whatnot, like coming down your bloodline, it's so hard to break. And you just need that little boost. So I think the best way really is to find balance, to use the best that science has to offer, to use the best information that spirituality has to offer, to use the best that like self-care has to offer, that nutrition has to offer, that what we know about the body, movement has to offer, and just kind of like find out what works for you. But absolutely, absolutely be open to medication if your condition requires that. And I'm about to wrap up here. Thank you guys so much for joining me. Thank you so much for sending in these beautiful questions. I love having this talk, this type of talk. And if you guys are enjoying it, maybe we can do more on whatever topics, because I have gone really deep these past, I don't even know, 3-4 years. And I know that I haven't actually shared that much of what I learned in my inner journeyings. And I love connecting this way, and I love you so much. And I think what I wrote down here, what I'd like to finish with is what I started with. Your story is unfolding exactly as it should. You're exactly where you're supposed to be. This is all perfect. This is the divine dance of life with all of its ups and downs, and your human experience, and your lessons, and your fuck ups, and your beautiful moments, and all of it. All of it is sacred. All of it is equally beautiful. I love you very much. Take care.